Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. Today, we're doing something I'm super excited about. We are untangling the ultimate AI alphabet soup. If you've been feeling, well, totally overwhelmed by the sheer volume of acronyms out there lately, trust me, you are definitely not alone. We're going to break down this entire taxonomy to understand exactly how the major AI disciplines actually relate to one another, and more importantly, we're going to give you that fundamental mental model that top modern CEOs use to lead their teams and navigate this crazy, rapidly shifting space. Let's get right into it.
So let's just dive right into the big question we're all secretly asking. What is the actual difference between AI, machine learning, and generative AI? We are literally bombarded with these buzzwords on a daily basis, right? In board meetings, tech briefings, you name it. But getting this right isn't just about sounding smart or technically accurate. It's about dictating clear strategy for your team and knowing exactly which tool is built for which specific job.
Think of this as your master evolutionary blueprint. This is our roadmap for today. It starts all the way up top with the absolute broadest, most foundational concept of artificial intelligence. And then it cascades all the way down into the highly complex, autonomous AI agents. We're going to decode this entire architecture, layer by layer, so you've got the whole picture.
To do that, here's how we're breaking it down. 1. The big picture of AI. 2. How machines actually learn. 3. Deep learning and making predictions. 4. Generative AI for creating content. 5. RAG, which is all about giving AI context. And finally, 6. AI agents and the autonomous future.
All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, the big picture of AI. The absolutely crucial thing to remember here is that artificial intelligence is really just a giant container. It encompasses absolutely everything else we're about to discuss today. Think of it like a huge umbrella, the ultimate parent category. It acts as the central hub, branching out to include things like machine learning, generative AI, and deep learning. But it also houses specific, targeted capabilities, right? Things like neural networks, computer vision, which is basically letting machines see the world, and NLP, or natural language processing, for understanding text. Simply put, if a machine is doing something that normally requires human intelligence, it safely fits right under this massive AI umbrella.
Moving right along to Section 2, how machines actually learn. So, when we talk about machine learning, we're really looking at three distinct paths, and they're all based on exactly how the data gets handled. First up, we've got unsupervised learning. This is where the machine looks at a bunch of raw data without any labels at all, and it manages to find hidden clusters or detect weird anomalies entirely on its own. Pretty cool. Next is supervised learning, which teams use heavily for ranking and regression. Here, we actually give the machine labeled data. It's kind of like giving a student an answer key, so it learns how to predict outcomes over time. And finally, there's reinforcement learning. This is where the machine learns purely through trial and error. It develops policies by being rewarded for good actions. Honestly, it's a lot like training a puppy. So, those are your three core ways machines learn from data.
All right, on to Section 3, deep learning and making predictions. Let's think about the actual mechanics of a prediction network for a second. You take raw visual input, say an image of a car. That input gets passed through a model made up of heavily interconnected neural nodes. These intricate layers crunch the pixels and eventually output a highly confident classification. This is a car. To us, it feels like magic, but in reality, it's just incredibly complex math disguised as a simple recognition task.
Now for Section 4, generative AI, or creating content.
Generative AI represents a total game changer in capability. It relies on a pretty straightforward, linear flow. It starts with you, the user, typing in a prompt. That prompt hits a large language model, or LLM, which acts as the main brain. The LLM processes your text, pulls from the massive amount of data it was trained on, and maybe even taps into basic tools. Then, boom, it generates a brand new, original output. It's essentially an insanely advanced version of autocomplete on your phone, stringing together words, code, or even pixels to create something that literally didn't exist a second ago.
Which brings us to Section 5, RAG, and giving AI some much-needed context.
Okay, so what happens when your LLM needs highly specific or totally private enterprise information to avoid just making things up or hallucinating? Well, that is exactly where RAG comes in, retrieval augmented generation. The contrast is huge here. Unlike standard generative AI, where your prompt goes straight to the LLM, RAG inserts an entirely new, incredibly critical preliminary step. Before the LLM ever tries to guess an answer, RAG first fetches specific, relevant context from a database. It grabs the hard facts first and only then does it write the answer.
Let's break down those 3 sequential phases, because it's actually a pretty brilliant system. First is retrieval. Your user prompt is converted into what's called an embedding, which basically searches a vector database to pull specific, highly accurate data sources. Second is the augmented phase. The system takes those freshly retrieved facts, combines them with the system's core instructions, and tacks on your original prompt. Finally, the generation phase. That massive, context-rich package is sent over to the LLM to generate the output. It is the absolute perfect way to turn a basic prompt into a highly contextualized, securely data-backed answer for your business.
And now, our final section, Section 6, AI Agents and the Autonomous Future.
Inside an AI agent, the large language model is no longer just a fancy text generator. No, it sits at the very center of a highly complex, interactive ecosystem. The central agent is constantly communicating with a bunch of different modules. It taps into memory to remember past interactions. It uses reasoning and planning to figure out how to break down a complex problem step by step. It actively wields external tools, accesses databases, and most importantly, it processes feedback. It is an entire digital worker, for sure, not just a simple chatbot.
So the real takeaway here is how this completely changes the workflow. Instead of a single straight line from a prompt to an output, an agent creates a continuous, ongoing feedback loop. You, the user, give it the initial prompt, but then the agent just takes over. It plans out its steps, it checks the database, it reasons through the logic, looks at any feedback, and it cycles through this loop over and over again, adjusting its strategy on the fly until it successfully finishes the task and delivers an actionable output. We are talking real autonomy here.
Zooming all the way back out, it's pretty clear that every single piece has its specific place and purpose in this ecosystem. We've navigated all the way from the broad, overarching strokes of basic artificial intelligence through the specialized branches of machine learning and deep learning. We've explored the amazing creative powers of generative AI, the precise context matching of RAG, and went all the way down into those intricate, autonomous loops of AI agents. Which brings us to our final takeaway for this explainer. And honestly, this is exactly how top CEOs are managing modern teams right now. Before you go out and buy into the absolute latest hype, ask yourself, what level of AI complexity does my team actually need today? A straightforward machine learning model might solve your problem perfectly without the massive overhead of an autonomous agent. So, as you sit down to look at your organization's roadmap for this next year, ask yourself, are you deploying AI to actually empower your human workforce, or are you just chasing the alphabet soup? Thanks so much for joining me today, and I'll catch you next time.